two things. The first is a short, true story. The second is a single sentence, one of the most important sentences I know. The story was told to me by a woman named Bree. The background is that Bree is a young mom overwhelmed by all the demands of work and motherhood. Yet still, Bree has it in her somehow to carve out time to attend a workshop by Jim Finley, a wonderful spiritual writer who, among other things, helps people learn contemplative prayer. When Bree would talk about her prayer life, she described herself as being like a frustrated young mom pulled in so many directions to try to do this contemplative thing. That seemed like something only possible for monks or maybe people who were retired, but not for people like her who were in the midst of juggling motherhood and work and screaming babies, right? So at one point in the workshop, she speaks up and says, "Where is the icon of the contemplative mom with one baby on a hip, a crying child on the floor, and food burning on the stove, and a pile of work waiting in the laptop, and feeling like I get up early in the morning to pray, and it doesn't matter how early I get up, because my kids are always going to wake up also and interrupt my morning prayer anyway." Jim Finley responds, "Okay, Bree, you be you, and I'll be God." And he proceeds to say, on behalf of God in front of everyone, "Bree, it means so much to me that you get up early to try to pray. I see that you love me to try to do that, and I just can't tell you how much that means to me." And he ends by saying, and I'll read his words to make sure I say it just as he did, "You see, Bree, you're so precious to me, and I love you so much. I just can't bear it. So what I do, Bree, is rush into the bodies of your children and wake them up, because I want to know what it feels like to be held by you." Someone I know who was there said that Bree started sobbing and that every person in the room was wiping tears from their eyes. For Bree, in the midst of the impossible demands of being a young mom, God wanted to know what it felt like to be hugged by her. So God rushed into the bodies of her children to wake them. God came to Bree. That's just what our God does. Some 2,000 years ago, God came to us in a singular way, into this troubled world through this humble, poor, working-class couple. God came into this world as an infant. God wanted to come that way so that we might see how good it is to be us, that we might be able to see that God loves us so much that God wanted to become who we are, to suffer what we suffer, to laugh at what we laugh with, to work, to pray, to suffer, to dance, to sing. Yes, our God came to us. The great news of Christmas, the wonderful news of Christmas, God comes to us still. In the blessed mess of this world and these times in which we live, God comes. Which brings me to part 2, the sentence. It's as I said, one of the most important sentences I know. It's the answer to the question, how does God come? God came 2,000 years ago as a child. How does God come now? The answer? God comes disguised as our life. I repeat that. How does God come? God comes disguised as our life. There is no other way for God to come. We have no other life. The blessed mess of the one ordinary, imperfect life we have is how God comes to us. For Bree, in the midst of the impossible demands of being a young mom, God came to her in the bodies of her children to be hugged by her. How does God come to you, to me, these days? I don't have to tell you that this Christmas is tough. Everything from distance to depression, from pandemic to politics, from loss to loneliness. These days are tough. But tough times do not deter our God. Times were tough 2,000 years ago when God surprisingly showed up as a child among us. And God shows up in surprising ways now. If you are alone right now, or if you feel all alone, God says to you, I am in the silence that surrounds you. I am in the silence. I am. If you've lost a loved one through death, perhaps can you hear God say, again, maybe through the kindness of someone who cares, or in the silence of your own heart, it hurts me to see you suffer, says God. I am with your loved one. I am with you. For me, recently, in the wonderful generosity of friends of mine who, for a special project, just came forward in ways I could have never expected, God showed up. They would not think this, but I know that God rushed into them for me. And without words, God said to me, I am with you. And like Bree, I cried. And God shows up in you. When you know insight, feel compassion, are drawn to some kindness, God says, that is me in you. Me in you. The promise is, whether or not we can see it in the moment, God is there. In the humor and the beauty, God is there laughing with us. In the heartache and hurt, God is there holding us, weeping with us. In the regular stuff of an ordinary day, homework and housework, texting and trying to do too much at the same time, God is there. In the worries that visit us, the successes we celebrate, the failures that haunt us, and the moments in between, God is there. It was a stunning and humble act of pure love when God came to us as a little child in Bethlehem. Some 2,000 years later, how does God come? As God did for Bree, God does for us. God comes disguised as our life.